here today to do a review of a book that I've just read, which is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, and also a graphic novel that I read a couple of days ago, which is called The Ticking by a French woman called Renee French, which is a book that I just completely found by accident in the library, and it is just beautiful. It's all grey, grey lead illustrations. Oh, you can't even see them. It's just beautiful. I'll do a quick wrap up of that after. But first, Maya Angelou. Now, I mentioned in a previous video that I actually ordered this book after she died. She died on it was the end of May, I think, at the age of 86 or so. I think she was about in her late 80s, which was tragic. But I actually didn't really know that much about her. I kind of know her by reputation rather than knowing anything about her, or really about her life beyond that. She was a quite prolific author and actress and poet. So I ordered this book kind of because I had been meaning to read it for a long time, and also it just seemed like it was a bit of a trigger for me to buy it. So this is a great book. It's it's an autobiography, and it's her first one of 5. This covers her very young childhood up until the age of 16 and the birth of her first son. It's a great book because not only is it interesting if you know about Maya Angelou and you're interested in her as a person, but it's also just a great book that will get you interested in her, which is what it kind of did for me. There are some things in it that are quite traumatic. She has quite a traumatic life. It starts off, she and her older brother Bailey are sent to live with their grandma in a little town called Stamps in Arkansas, and basically grow up with their grandma for the most part, apart from a couple of instances where they're sent to live with their parents who are split up, which is the reason that they were sent to live with their grandma, who live in St. Louis, and I've completely forgotten where the father lives. Anyway, somewhere else. And it kind of tells a story of small town life, I suppose, or small town life for black people in particular, because obviously it takes place in the 30s for most of it. Maya Angelou was born in 1928. I just did some more research. So it's kind of like the 30s really, and the early 40s that this book takes place in. So up to kind of the end of the war. She lives with she has a very close relationship with her brother, and lives with her grandma and her uncle. And her grandmother runs a shop, like a supplier kind of grocery type, corner store type shop in Stamps. And she helps out her grandmother. She's a very studious child. She does very well at school, quite academic. And it's peppered with these little insights of obviously her looking back, but she's a fiercely intelligent woman, obviously, and was a very intelligent and, I imagine, articulate child who would kind of get these glimpses into racism and just the position of her and her friends and her as a black person in that period of time living in America when things are segregated. They live in the black area, they have to cross into the white area at various points, and are treated horrifically by some of the poor whites who live and come into the shop, who are extremely disrespectful and rude. And hi Maggie, it's Maggie, just going to say hi. You're gonna sit. Anyway, some other traumatic things that happen are that when she and her brother Bailey go and live with their mother for a little while, at the age of 8 she's raped by her mother's boyfriend. I can't believe I just said it so flippantly, but this is obviously key. It's a turning point in her life. It's an extremely traumatic event that I don't think anyone could ever get over, and it is horrendous. It's described in quite graphic detail. But so I suppose that's a trigger warning for some people. But I think it's important that these events like this aren't just glossed over. It obviously had a huge impact on her life, and and the life of her family. And she ends up telling her mother about it, and you know, the kind of the fear and shame that accompanies that. Thankfully, her mother reacts and in a positive way, I suppose, and you know, believes that it happened, and gets rid of the boyfriend and all sorts of things. But that's obviously a key event in her life. The other reason that it's great is for the insights that it gives into the people in the little town of Stamps. There's some really, they're actually almost laugh out loud passages there's a couple of church services where there's a woman who just wails and is overcome with everything, you know, the power of the Lord, and people have to kind of cart her out of there, or that kind of thing. And it's just, they're hilarious. And there's the way that these kind of characters are drawn are just brilliant, and you can absolutely see them and imagine them, and they're really real, which is, I mean, it is an autobiography, and so all the people and things are real. But that's actually something that I kept forgetting as I was reading it. Occasionally there'd be a word or a sentence and I'd be jolted back into the fact that, yeah, this actually isn't just a fiction book. This is someone's life. And it's a brilliant, for that reason, it's a great book. Not that it would be not as great if it were not a true story, but it is, and it's great. It definitely made me want to read the next ones. It's one of those books that kind of speeds up towards the end. There's a lot of time spent, I guess the bulk of it's kind of up to the age of about 12, and then the next couple of years are almost skimmed, or they feel like they rushed past a bit more than the others, to the birth of her first son when she's just 16. So the next book, I imagine, takes off where this one finishes, and as I said, it's one of 5, so there are more to come, and I'm not sure whether the 5 cover her entire, or at what point of her life they stop, because obviously her life she only just died, and I'm not sure when the last book was published. But it's a great book. I'm definitely more interested in reading more about her, just because she's even if I wasn't more interested in reading about her because of her work, her life's work, it's a great book. It's interesting, and I just want to kind of find out more. So that's that. I don't know what else to say, really. I think it's something that you should read. It's easy, as I said, it's quite short. It's very easy to read. It's very user-friendly, I suppose. And she's a person worth reading more about, I think. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is just this little book, The Ticking, which I briefly showed you before. This is a really touching book. It's about a little boy, God, I've just forgotten his name. Edison Steelhead. He's a little boy who's born, and during his birth his mother dies, and he is taken away by his father to live on a little island because his father, Edison looks like his father, and his father is deformed in some way. His eyes are very far, almost on either side of his head, and this is something that his father is kind of ashamed on and wants to protect Edison from the world, basically, because of it. And so it tells the story of Edison growing up on this island and his father trying to protect him, and Edison kind of processes the world through drawing. So you see his drawings, and it's just beautiful. It's touching. It's one of those books that kind of puts you in a real, it's not depressing, but it made me kind of really not want to speak to people. I just wanted to kind of process it by myself. It was a really heartfelt book, and it really struck a lot of chords. As well as that, it is just beautifully illustrated. This is one of the illustrations that Edison himself does of a little fly, and I'll show you a picture of Edison so you can see what I mean about his face. That's him as a child when he's just been born. I'm not sure if you can even see them properly. So hard showing books like this, but look, if you ever see it, she's written some other graphic novels as well. This one was published in 2010, I believe, or 12. 2005, there you go, I'm wrong. And I got it from the library, so if my library can have it, it can't be that hard to find, because my library is the best library. And I highly recommend that you check it out, because it's quick to read, the pages are quite thick in this copy of it, and it's just really beautiful, almost inspiring, and it's the kind of book that I would like to read to my child if I had one as well, because I think it's one that you can kind of like many graphic novels, you kind of read it and get from it whatever you get from it at whatever stage of life you are, I suppose. That's the way to say it. And before I go, just quickly, I've almost finished this book, which is brilliant. It's called True Grit by Charles Portis. I actually picked this up again by chance. It was just in the library, and it has an introduction by Donna Tartt. It's a great book. It was made into a movie recently, and also in the 60s, starring John Wayne. I haven't seen either of them, but after reading this, I'm definitely going to. It's really good. It's very quick, and it's a book that it's almost one that children or teenagers could get a lot out of as well. It's kind of a western. It's a rip-roaring tale. The protagonist is a 14-year-old girl who's trying to seek revenge, or who's trying to find the man who shot her father to kill him. Basically, she wants to see him hanged for that crime. So she goes off in search of this man, along with a Texas Ranger and another guy she's sought out to kind of bring him down, basically. And it's great. I haven't finished yet. I'm actually about 2/3 of the way through, and I'm probably going to finish it this weekend and then go and see the movie. But I'll probably do another little review of this later, but it's another good one. So I think that's all from me for now.